Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man who's been the base of many pyramid schemes, my brother Mike.
Uh, are they the ones that get paid?
No.
Or are they the ones that do the paying?
They do the paying.
They do the paying. Okay. Possibly. I don't know. I just give my money to whoever asks for it. You know, you got seems like snappy clothes and a big smile. I'm giving you money left and right. Just here you go.
You telling me you got a Nutriboom or you got some sort of pill that makes me run faster, jump higher? I'm all over.
If there's a prince in Nigeria that needs me, I'm going to help him.
All right? Mike's there for him. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is. You know, like we have to laugh right now because there's a lot going on we'd like to cry about. And so, you know, let's keep it light. Let's keep it fun. On this week's episode, we're going to hold our noses long enough to look back at the last week of Royals baseball. It was a rough one, in case you can't tell. But luckily, the Spotlight segment gets a whole lot better because we had a sit-down chat with Royals prospect Javier Vaz earlier this week. So you'll hear that during our Spotlight segment. You will see Mike and I very quickly change clothes if you're watching on YouTube. It'll look like we just snapped our fingers and changed our clothes because that was recorded on a different day. But we'll get to talk to Javier. That was a really interesting conversation in my mind. I really enjoyed it. Mike, how'd you feel about that combo with Javier?
It was just awesome. Not only the insight, but getting to know Javier the person. He just seems like such a wonderful dude. Like he'd be a great hang just to hang out with. So yeah, he was extremely fun. Lots of insights into not only his own development, but kind of what the Royals are thinking for developing hitters. And yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, you hear that, Javier? If you're listening, Mike wants to hang. Just give him a call.
Shoot me a text next time you're in the Kansas City area. I'm buying the first round, Javier.
Mm-hmm. After that, we'll preview this next week's games where we hope the Royals will get back on track for winning a little bit. Big series with Cleveland coming up this week, so hopefully the Royals can sort of find some offense and find some bullpen and be a little bit better. But first, we need to make sure to remind you: like, subscribe, comment on everything. We really want to get more people subscribing to our Substack, the Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. Just got a few new subscribers this week. We're doing really great putting out stuff. Mike did an excellent profile of Gavin Cross last week. I dug into MJ Melendez's turnaround recently. I dug into the struggling offense right now. I've dug into a whole bunch of stuff lately. It's hard for me to remember. I produce so much Royals content at this point. It is difficult for me to remember specifically where and when I've produced it. But subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack, comment, like, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, all that sort of stuff. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it. It's all we ask for from you. So please make sure to go do those things. I also need to remind you that Bet Online is your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLAEV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts there. As always, we start the review of last week with roster news. We got some good roster news for the Royals this week. Even though the play on the field wasn't great, they did get some people back that they kind of are counting on. Michael Wacha was reinstated from the injured list earlier than I thought he would be. I thought he had like a broken foot, right, Mike? Like that was the fracture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I assumed.
Foot. But remember, he played through that for a whole game. So I wonder how bad it was. Could have just been like a crack. If it's just a crack in the bone, sometimes that doesn't take quite as long.
Well, he was back. Dr. Mead over here says it was just a crack and he's fine.
Oh, I'm speculating there.
Just to be clear. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Wacha back into this rotation?
Oh, I think it's absolutely huge because you and I have talked about how the starting rotation has been very good, but you cannot look at the organization or AAA, whatever you want to call it, and think that the depth of starting pitching is very good because it's not. And so that slot in the rotation, we were essentially punting on those games because it was like, what can we do to try and create a situation where we're in the game? Because we know Daniel Lynch probably, at least right now, isn't the answer to start there consistently. And so to have him back and to have him look good today, that was huge.
Yeah, and it's nice to have a veteran who's coming back, knowing that like, hey, this guy has been on the injured list before. He knows what it means to come off of it. He knows what it means to jump back into major league play fairly quickly. Michael Wacha's not the type of guy who needs to like ramp up in the same way that a younger pitcher might need to. A veteran like him knows how to sort of just bring his stuff. He's a thinking man's pitcher at this point, and he's doing a great job of sort of moving everything around. That changeup too is like because it's such a feel pitch, and for him it's almost second nature. He doesn't have to like find it again or anything like that. For Michael Wacha, it's just show up, start pitching, and odds are it's going to be just like the last time you were pitching. And so it was great to see him back. He pitched really well today. They still couldn't get the win, but you're right. Having every fifth day be a Daniel Lynch or a bullpen or something you don't want that. You're right. It's almost like you're saying every fifth day we're going to only have a 10% chance of winning. Right. And so now we've jumped that back up to closer to 50%, if not over 50% at times. And having Michael Wacha, I think, will do wonders once this offense gets going again, if it ever gets going again. Speaking of the offense getting going again, the Royals reinstated another guy from the injured list, also foot-related injury, also on a ball off a bat. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. But Hunter Renfroe hit a ball off his own foot and got a deep bone bruise, I think they were saying it was. But he was reinstated from the IL. He's back. Mike, what are your thoughts on Renfroe? Is he going to help this offense? Because boy, does it need it right now.
We really need him to hit. I know people like to proclaim that he's a fantastic right fielder, which he isn't. But we need his offense. We need his bat to be what it was when he went on the IL, because this offense is just so bad right now. He didn't see it from him today. Really haven't seen it from him since he got back, but hopefully he can start to be a productive member of the lineup, a lineup that, especially at the bottom, has just been a black void.
Well, what's interesting about this lineup is right now, the guys you wouldn't expect to be hitting very much, Garrett Hampson,
some
and
of them are,
they're hitting a little bit. Kyle Isbell's hitting a little bit. It's the guys at the top of the lineup right now who are just awful. They're awful. Bobby Witt Jr. has been awful. Salvador Perez has been awful. Vinny Pasquantino's been pretty awful.
Michael
Garcia has been, bleh, And so, yeah, it's tough because they need all the hitters they can get. So hopefully Renfroe gets back in there and starts hitting immediately. Now, you never really rely on him for offense, though, because even when he's been hot, even if he was hot for that little stretch before he went on the IL, that was mostly just good batted ball luck. It wasn't anything like, oh, we found something here in Hunter Renfroe. It was like, yeah, good. He's having a nice hot stretch. Right now, so many of their hitters have hit just dire slumps. And then what happens is they start pressing and it gets even worse. And I don't know what gets them out of it. They need to have I guess just maybe facing a bad pitcher and having a good day gets them some confidence and gets them taking better plate appearances, because it's not just the results that are bad. The plate appearances are bad at this point, right? They're getting to the point where Michael Garcia was just flailing up there at the plate, right? I'm seeing, obviously Salvador Perez is swinging out of his shoes and all these sorts of things. I mean, yesterday they had 2 hits, or at one point I looked, it was deep.
Today they had 2 hits. They had 2 hits all day today.
2 hits, no walks yesterday. No walks. They're not walking against anyone either. It's bad. It's bad on a lot of fronts offensively. Hopefully Hunter Renfroe can be something positive for the lineup. Speaking of something positive for the lineup, let's talk about somebody who has not been positive for the lineup. That is Drew Waters. He got optioned back to AAA. Mike, I don't know if there's much to say about this, but he spent about 2 days in Major League Baseball. I mean, it was more than that, but it felt like 2 days.
Played like 2 games.
Played like 2 games, and then was sent right back down to AAA. What are your thoughts on who some people think is the savior of this lineup?
He's not. He's not the savior of this lineup. That's the most I can say. Drew Waters is... Unless something changes with Drew Waters is an org guy at this point. To me, unless something drastic changes, unless their strikeout rate comes down tremendously, unless the power goes up tremendously, something like that. He's just another guy. He's a depth guy. Your 5th or 6th favorite choice, and 6th or 7th favorite choice in the outfield, maybe. The only reason that we continue to talk about this is because if Drew Waters didn't do those other things, if he wasn't a high-level prospect at one point, if he didn't have the switch hitting ability and the running ability and the somewhat defensive versatility, we wouldn't be talking about Drew Waters, because his offense has never said this guy can be a consistent major league contributor. And so he's just the same. He's the same to me. He's a guy that should be in AAA. And if he makes a change, great. I'll be the first one to go, hey, Drew Waters has a chance to be a guy at Major League Baseball again. But right now, that's not the case.
It isn't, and I don't have much else to say about that because there is. Why spend so much time on somebody who's like, I mean, that's no offense to Drew Waters or anything, but like, we don't talk this much about Nick Prado, and I feel like there's not that much of a difference there. And so, on the field last week, the Royals took one on the chin. If you weren't watching, for one, I understand. But if you, but also you missed the Royals getting just killed. Really, I mean, this was a week. We've had some weeks in the past, one or two, where they're like, oh, they lost this week. They had a losing record this week or whatever. But they played pretty well. This was bad baseball. They played a week's worth of bad baseball this last week. They went 1-5 against the A's and Rangers. The offense and bullpen were once again the main culprits for this tough week. I think I looked earlier today. These aren't updated numbers after today's game, but previous to today's game, the bullpen had a ERA over 7 in the first 5 games of this week. That was the bullpen's ERA. The offense in the first 5 games of this week had a weighted runs created plus of 55. And so that's how bad they were this week. Mike, what are your thoughts on this, what was supposed to be the soft stretch of a schedule, and how we're opening up in the first 6 games of it so far?
Certainly winning 1 game out of 6 against the A's and the Rangers, that's pretty brutal. You're talking about an organization that's usually seen as one of the worst organizations in baseball. They lost more games than the Royals did last year. And then you're talking about a team that's underperformed their expectations in the Rangers. Now, I will say this, if you want to look on the positive, they did face some good pitching in that Rangers series. Max Scherzer coming back off of injury. Nathan Eovaldi is a good pitcher. Okay, you can say that. What happened in the A series? You got 1 win against a team that isn't very good. Like it just, you felt like there was going to be a chance, especially in that A series, because you had Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo going, right? And you didn't win either one of those starts, right? They didn't win. Did they win? I can't remember which one of those starts they won.
I can't either.
Who was starting the day that they won?
I can bring it up real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
But still, you're like, hey, come on, guys. Like,
yes, they did not win the Reagans or the Lugo start. They won the Singer start.
Singer start.
On the 20th.
And that was kind of a comeback situation. They only scored a couple runs, and then the A's scored a couple runs, and Bobby Witt Jr. hits a home run in the 8th to win the game, basically. Not that encouraging of a sign here for a team that you hope to be contending for a playoff spot. Now, part of that is just this. It's the good news, I guess, is that it's the parts of the teams that we thought were already problems that are costing them. We already knew the offense was inconsistent. We already knew the bullpen wasn't very good. Those are the reasons they lost these games this week. And so that is somewhat encouraging because you feel like you already have talked about and know what some of the fixes are for this, even if you can't do some of those fixes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. It is a blown opportunity to start these first 2 series going 1-5 of this soft stretch. You want them to be able to sort of gain ground in the Central or like extend the lead that they had for a playoff spot, which they no longer have. You wanted that to take place. And it's interesting because the offense has been the problem. The bullpen has been the problem, as you said. But what this stretch might tell us, if they don't do better during this soft stretch, it might tell us that they can't be buyers at the deadline. It might tell us that they need to really pull the reins back on the notion of going for it for a playoff run. Now, in the Substack post that I made today, I talked about like my theory, and I have this opinion now that the Royals should not be aggressive at all in the trade market at this point, right? Like if they want to go after some really marginal reliever and it's not going to cost them much, sure. But I think they need to both be buying and selling at this deadline. I think you have a ton of contracts that are 1-year or 2-year deals in, name them, Michael Wacha, Hunter Renfroe, Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson, who else? Chris Stratton, Will Smith. You have basically
that doesn't include guys like Brady Singer, who will be
right. That's another consideration is, do you want to trade a guy like Brady Singer? Brady Singer's having a good season. It might be worth it to go ahead and trade him, honestly. And so they have to really be thinking long-term here, I think, because we're seeing now that maybe it's not a great idea to just like go for it in 2024 when you're trying to build, you're in the early stages of trying to build a sustainable winner. Okay. Now I know that's going to hurt a lot of fans. I know a lot of fans out there who are like, trade everyone in the farm system, bring in all the best relievers, bring in all the hitters. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Bro, why would you sell out your future for one shot at the playoffs? Makes no sense to me. Like, anyway, Mike, there were a few strong performers this week, despite the awful record on the field. Who was your strong performer for this week?
I went with Michael Wacha because I think it was extremely important to see him come back and have success right away. Now, the Rangers lineup isn't the best lineup in the world. In fact, they're not that good at all. But he looked strong. He looked strong at 5 strikeouts, 1 walk. He pitched 5 innings. I'm sure they were going to be quick with that either way, being his first time back in Major League Baseball. 3 hits, 1 earned run. And yeah, he looked pretty solid out there. And that's really what you're wanting from a Michael Wacha. You want somebody you can consistently count on to keep you in a game, to be competitive. He did everything he had to do, you would want him to do to win this game today. The Royals offense just didn't do anything. And so it feels safe and comfortable, like a nice warm jacket right out of the dryer when Michael Wacha comes into pitch.
Wacha wasn't today. Wacha wasn't today.
Wacha wasn't today?
I thought March was today.
Oh, yeah, March was today. Wacha was yesterday. I'm mixing up my games. My bad. Yesterday, Wacha was very good. The offense didn't have enough. And so, yeah, Michael Wacha makes me feel safe when he's in this rotation. I don't know why.
Well, it's a lot better than Michael Wacha than like a Daniel Lynch and a bunch of relievers because Daniel
Lynch actually, I think, had a good outing today in AAA.
He did. He did have a good outing in AAA, but that's
same old.
My strong performer for this week is one MJ Melendez. Now, I know some people are very down on MJ, generally speaking, but he has really turned it on the last couple of weeks. This week, he went 5 for 17 with 4 doubles, so 4 extra base hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. He also made a couple of incredible plays in the outfield this week. A guy who has really stepped up his game defensively this year. He's starting to turn it around. I looked at his numbers to write about him a little bit in the Substack today and last week, maybe a little bit too. In the last 2 weeks coming into today, he had a 129 weighted runs created plus. Pretty good. He looks like he has turned it around and a lot of that's that's luck, honestly, coming into all the way up until June 8th, I think, is what I looked at. He was one of the unluckiest hitters in Major League Baseball. He had a huge split between his expected numbers and his actual numbers. Since then, in the last couple of weeks, he's getting better outcomes on those batted balls. Now, part of that, I think he's also learned to address the high fastball better, to either lay off of it or foul it off, and that's helping him get better outcomes at the plate. It's helping him see more pitches that are down in the zone that he can do more with. And so that's really great to see. I hope he continues to hit. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a decent second half. That's what he did last year. They really, really need him to hit. But it would just crush me if everyone else starts hitting and then Melendez falls off again. And so hopefully that continued offensive success can happen for MJ, and he can be a part of it when the rest of the offense comes back around and they can start actually firing on all cylinders. Mike, there were plenty of weak performers to choose from this week. I don't know. Did you put names in a hat, or I don't know exactly how you did this, but
no, there was a specific guy that I wanted to talk about, and he struggled this week, and so I was like, we got to talk about him. And actually, I went back and did two weeks worth of data here. So John Schreiber, I looked at what he'd done this week, and he did very terribly in just one appearance, though. And I started thinking back, like, how often did John Schreiber only get one appearance in a week in this bullpen? Right? And it may be kind of starting to hint at something the Royals are seeing or an adjustment that Schreiber's trying to make, because you only get one appearance in a week when you were the best reliever out of this bullpen for the first month and a half. But here's 2 week totals here for John Schreiber. 3 1/3 inning pitch, 8 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, and just 2 strikeouts. He has looked very bad. He's gotten some bad luck too. When we've talked about kind of guys that pitch to contact, there can be some really bad luck on batted ball outcome sort of things, but he's also given up some home runs too. And Schreiber needs to keep the ball on the ground. Now, I'm not saying that you throw a John Schreiber out of your bullpen or anything like that. I think he's a valuable piece, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a more belief in a Sam Long from this team, who's, I think, taking away some of John Schreiber's opportunities moving forward.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me, in large part because Long has more swing and miss potential, right? Like, what's weird is Schreiber, if you look at him last year to this year, or even last few years to this year, his strikeout rate has fallen off quite a bit this year. Like, it's not just that he's always been this guy. No, he's always been kind of a ground ball pitcher, but he used to get more strikeouts. He's getting fewer strikeouts, less swing and miss this year. And as a result, you're seeing some stretches where balls just get through the infield and he ends up giving up a lot of hits and a lot of runs. And it's like, that's because he's not missing bats. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense that some of those innings are going to go to a guy like Sam Long, who's doing a better job getting more swing and miss this year than Schreiber is. I went with the guy who's having a real good job swinging and missing lately, and that's Salvador Perez. He's my weak performer for this week. Man, they need him so badly in that lineup, and he's just not coming through right now. 3 for 22, 0 extra base hits this week, 0 walks, 7 strikeouts. It's kind of classic Salvador Perez sometimes. When he goes into a slump, he tries to swing his way out of it, and that never works. And then ultimately he ends up just getting deeper and deeper into that slump. That's Salvador Perez at the plate right now. He needs to refocus, shrink his own swinging zone, and get back to taking more pitches, hitting pitches that are in premium spots for him to swing at. But that's sort of the only thing that's going to get him back on track. He's not going to be able to swing his way out of this slump. He's going to have to patient his way out of this slump. Mike, with so much going wrong, I know you got some words of inspiration from us or for us. Let us know what your theme is for the week.
Well, they're not my words of inspiration, but the great Tupac Shakur's words of inspiration is my theme for the week. We ain't meant to survive because it's a setup. And even though you're fed up, you got to keep your head up. Okay? Ooh,
keep your head
child, up. Things are going to get easier. We hope. Up. All right, we got the Marlins coming in. They're not very good. We'll talk a little bit, preview that series here in a little bit. But we got to keep the head up, y'all. Fighting for that wild card. And even if we aren't huge dealers at the trade deadline, this team might have what it takes to make the playoffs, even if we don't deal. And so let's keep our head up. Keep fighting for it. Young, aggressive team. Be great.
Yeah. My theme for this week is just more of a, how do I say this? A plea for something. So right now my theme is pretty much specific to the offense. And I want to go back. So part of what the offense is going through right now is they're getting bit by the regression bug with runners in scoring position. Their numbers with runners in scoring position during this slump have been terrible. Early in the year, they were great. And so they were kind of getting good luck early in the year. They're getting hit by the bad luck right now. And so my line comes from a Jason Isbell song called Maybe It's Time. And he wrote it and gave it to the, what soundtrack is that, Mike? I forget the name of that movie.
Oh, it's
A Star is Born.
Star is Born.
This is a song that he kind of wrote for the movie A Star is Born. And it's called Maybe It's Time. And the line goes, if I could take spirits from my past and bring them here, I would. I would bring the spirits of that early runner in scoring position success to right now if I could. I absolutely would. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy. You already know that All in Physical Therapy helped turn our mother into the human equivalent of Cocaine Bear. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
If I got a new hip, I'd ask for one that helps me dunk a basketball. Kaboom!
I figure it turns you into like a Transformers. You can just like zoom and zoom up into the air,
I want to be early 90s Larry Johnson.
All in Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and coming soon to Belton. Yep. But most importantly, they're in network for nearly all insurance providers.
With the money you save, you can buy several decorative gourds.
Mike is big into decorative gourds. Mm-hmm. If you're a high school athlete recovering from an injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's allin-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. For these, luckily I can cut off anything that starts badly at the beginning, so we're cutting this whole part off. For this week's Spotlight segment, we're very lucky to be joined by Royals prospect Javier Vaz. He's a second baseman, utility player, outfield, can do everything type of athlete, doing really well down in Northwest Arkansas right now for the Royals. Thank you so much for joining us today, Javier.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We're going to jump off with a bunch of questions. We have quite a few things to cover. We're very interested in your background and your offensive profile and so many other things. Mike, why don't you kick us off with a question for Javier?
Yeah, Javier, you're obviously a great athlete. When we look at kind of baseball profiles, you have speed, you can play multiple positions, things like that. I'm kind of curious, and for our listeners, because I've done a lot of research, I've written a little bit about your prospect status and all that sort of stuff. But how did you come to choose baseball as an athlete that you are? I'm sure you had other sports you were interested in and other avenues you could have gone. What was it about baseball that made it your number one for you? Was it your parents? I think I had read maybe somewhere your dad was involved pretty heavily in baseball. I could be wrong there, but just let us know how did baseball become your thing?
Yeah, so all my life, my dad was around the game. Until I was 5 years old, my dad was playing pro baseball. He played professionally. And then after that, he started coaching when I was really young. As long as I remember, he was a baseball coach. He coached at a high school in my hometown at first. And then he went to the junior college I went to McNeese State for a couple years, then back to my JUCO. And now he's in pro ball with the Cubs. So baseball was always like I was always around it. Like either I was like outside playing wiffle ball in front of the house with my little brother, or we were at the baseball field with dad. So baseball's always been my number one sport. I played football growing up, played basketball growing up. I stopped playing football freshman year of high school. Those boys got too big. I can't deal with that. And basketball, I was just too short. I really wish I would have stuck with basketball. I quit after my freshman year, and looking back on it, I wish I would have stuck with it. But I ended up choosing baseball because I was a freshman, like on the varsity team, and the other two sports I played, I was on the freshman team.
Yeah, and it's worked out pretty well for you. You've
I
done
would
okay.
say so.
That kind of leads us into that. Our next question there is that you finished your college career at one of, if not the top college programs in the country at Vanderbilt. Certainly what a lot of people consider the strongest conference in the SEC. Can you tell us and our listeners how that experience at Vanderbilt, and if I'm not mistaken, you were there your last 2 years, is that right?
Yes.
How did that experience at Vanderbilt help prepare you at one of the top college programs to move into professional baseball?
Oh, I feel like no other place could have prepared me better for pro ball. The way the practices were set up, how the structure was, the environment, and everything. It was very competitive, and I feel like the environment we're in now is like ultra. It might not seem like it, but it's definitely a very ultra competitive environment that we're in. And I would say the constant pressure day in and day out of like trying to get better, or like having like those good players, good teammates like on your back, like pushing you. I feel like there's no better place for me than Vanderbilt to prepare me for pro ball.
Yeah, and just a quick follow up. Just in practice, can you name like what kind of arms were you seeing at Vanderbilt in practice?
Yeah. So I mean, Kumar Rocker, one of my best friends. Jack Leiter's one of my really good friends as well. I mean, I faced them the very first inter squad that I got to Vanderbilt. It's my first year at Vanderbilt. It's like the first week we were there. We start inter squads, and I'm batting first, and there's Kumar Rocker throwing for 2 innings on the other team. Jack Leiter's throwing 2 innings for the other team, and Luke Murphy, who was our closer that year, he's with the Angels. But yeah, I faced some dogs out gate coming, especially coming from junior college to a 4 year school, and those are the first guys I see. I'm not going to tell you results because I didn't really have
Well, nobody can expect that. I mean, those are two elite college baseball pitchers who are both having great careers now in professional baseball. I guess one of the things I had to ask you about, because I actually wrote a prospect profile on you. You are our kickoff prospect for our prospect series. And so one of the things that stood out to me was you have a couple unique statistics that you've had throughout your professional career, and actually even in your college career when I looked those statistics up as well. And that is that you strike out less than you walk. And so your on base ability is extremely good. I guess my question is, do you see that pitch selection as your best tool, and how do you see that helping you get to Major League Baseball?
Yeah, it's with that. It's one of those things where I try to not think about it a lot. I've never swung and missed or struck out much like all my life, so it's something I really try to not focus on. I really focus more so on my swing decisions and what pitches I'm swinging at, because more times than not, when I swing, the balls will be put in play. So I want to make sure that I'm getting off my best A swing, and I'm swinging at a pitch that I could definitely do damage on. I would say that's the biggest part of my development right now. I would say the more I swing at the better pitches, the better everything will be. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I see pitches well. I tend to see everything well, pick up spin well. It's just so more so of recognizing it early and committing to my plan and trusting my plan and process.
You mentioned that notion of picking a pitch that you can do damage on. Lately, we've seen you've been doing some significant damage. You've had a couple of home runs in the last week or two. Is there something to that notion of like those are a couple of pitches that were right in my turbo zone, right in the zone I can do damage on?
Yeah. So right, they're in my damage zone. Something a pitch that I could do damage with. And another thing that I would say, like earlier in the year, that like I was doing that, I'm like cleaned up, was getting that A swing off. You know what I mean? Not swinging to put the ball in play, but swinging to do damage and make something happen. Not just get, obviously, like the type of player I am. I'm the table setter. I'm supposed to get on base, but when I swing the bat, I can do damage as well.
Well, it's interesting to me because a lot of players struggle with the notion of like I need to not swing because I'll swing and miss, whereas you are of the mind that's like I need to not swing because I can do a lot more damage if I'm in the heart of the plate than if I'm swinging in the shadow of the plate or just off the plate because you probably can make contact and put a ball in play that's just off the plate, but what kind of quality of contact are you going to get out there?
Right.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
spot on.
Okay. That's a,
And do
that's a
you,
great that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna throw in with that something that Javier mentioned. And do you think like, okay, your ability to do that, your ability to distinguish, hey, maybe pick out a pitch, swing less at the pitches that are on the shadow or outside the zone, is that going to be your ability that takes you to the next level, to
Oh,
Major League Baseball and things like that? Is that how you feel?
100%. I feel like it. I mean, if I mean, I haven't watched crazy amount of video, but I bet you if you watch some of my outs, I would say about probably 65, 70% of them are pitches that I've swung at that are on like the borderline or like touching the edge of the black, that are really good
Hmm.
pitches that like I'll put those in play and I'll hit them probably to second base or shortstop, where if I could take that pitch, maybe win another pitch, I could get that fastball in the middle 13 inches of the plate instead of hidden on the edges of the black.
Wow, that is such a phenomenal way of spelling it out for fans like us because the detail of with which you think about it is so immense. Sometimes it's like, just hit the ball, but it's like, no, there's a lot that goes into that. And I think especially for guys who have been so good their whole career at making contact, at the highest levels of college, at the highest levels of high school baseball, to then get into professional baseball and realize that has to change a little bit can be so hard because it's almost fighting the nature you've been building for 15 years. You
Oh
know,
yeah. I mean, pitchers have scouting reports too, and like, I bet you on my scouting report, it's like saying like probably like nibble against this guy, because I mean, if he swings, like it's going to be put in play. You're probably not going to strike this guy out, so make him get himself out. And I feel like half the time I'm getting myself out.
Well, still, if you're on base half the time, I think you're going to be okay in this
yeah.
game. I'm just saying, like, we're talking a little bit about what it takes to sort of move up for Javier Vaz, the prospect, and I'm curious to know: does the organization sit you down and say, like, these are the things we need to see from you, Javier, in order for you to make that progression? And if so, what are they telling you about what your next step is to get to AAA and then eventually to Major League Baseball?
Yeah. They just say they just been telling me lately just to really hone in on preparation. Preparation, I would say, is half the battle. The best players in the league, they prepare the best. And I know it sounds really cliche, but I mean it's true. So like just honing in on my preparation. I dealt with like nagging injuries throughout the season. Nothing to like keep me off the field, but stuff that like just irks me a little bit, you know. So making sure that I'm like getting my treatment in, that I'm just really just handling my business, and the better I handle my business, the easier it is for me to just climb. I mean, at this point right now, I gotta play ball, handle my business, hone in on my preparation.
You mentioned preparation, so take us through like what that looks like for you in a so the if you don't know, listeners, the minor league season has like a week has like a routine to it. Tuesday you all start with games and things like that. You all get Monday off every week. Your different series once a week. Can you tell us what preparation looks like, either going into a series or going into a particular game against a particular pitcher?
Yeah, I'll start off like say on Tuesday. So Tuesdays at home, like we play at 7 o'clock. So I'll get to the field around like 1:30. Since it's Tuesday, I'll start my lift around 2 o'clock. Finish around 2:45. We have a team meeting, well, hitters meeting around like 3. So we talk about the starter for the day, and then right about like 3:30, I'll hit in the cages, be done around like 3:50, 4 o'clock. I'll have like 45 minutes of downtime. So usually that's the time where like I go into the training room, either get some forearm stuff done, like trap stuff, shoulder stuff, like just maintenance stuff or whatever. That only takes about like 15 minutes. So I got like 30 more minutes. I would say about around like 4:30, go out on the field, take ground balls. About 4:45 BP starts. That takes about an hour. It'll be about 5:30 ish, somewhere around there. Got an hour and a half. Shower up, lay down for about like 30 minutes. I really don't nap before the games or anything. Just lay down, just put my headphones on, maybe close my eyes, visualize stuff. And then, I mean, let's go ball. 7 o'clock.
Wow, that is a day before the game. That is like that is like a full time job, and then you got to go play a baseball game. Is what that's like to me. That's a lot. I'm thinking about like sort of what's interesting to me is you mentioned like that's your prep for a day, and this in season is obviously very different than off season. This last off season, a lot of players try and focus on stuff that they can improve on. What was your focus during this last off season? What were the things you were working on to make sure you were going to be either ready for this year or taking a step forward?
Yeah, my body and nutrition for sure. That's probably going to be a big focus for me next off season as well. Definitely just getting stronger. The flyouts that I have, like to the track, like obviously I want those to go off the wall and over the fence, stuff like that. Mechanically, with my swing, I try to not tinker too much because of like my swing and miss and stuff. Like my mechanics are clean. I feel like my swing will play. I just gotta like really just hone in on decisions. This past off season, yeah, it was just main focus for me was my nutrition and strength because I was in school as well this
Oh
past
yeah.
off season.
What
Yeah,
are you studying?
medicine, health, and society. I just graduated this past.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Um, yeah. So that's a very, I wondered about that because so much of the game now is exit velocity, and can you produce the type of exit velocities that will give you success at the major league level? Is that something that you're thinking about, not just even in terms of exit velocity necessarily, but do I hit the ball hard enough, and do I
Yeah,
need to constantly be working to hit the ball harder?
definitely hard hit percentage. I mean the three categories that I like to focus on, like for me, is chase percentage, end zone swing and miss, and hard hit rate. I mean, at the end of the day, there's positive correlations between exit velo and average and like success in the game. So I mean, the harder you hit the ball, the more success you're most likely going to have. So like I'm trying to hit the ball hard. I already don't chase, don't swing and miss. Definitely got to keep up with that stuff. It's really just I just got to play. It's a rep thing. I got to play ball.
Yeah. It's so refreshing to hear you say that because we talk about it all the time. And to know that Royals minor leaguers are focusing on those things and understanding that those hard hit rates do produce outcomes that we need that we need to be successful in professional baseball. It's just extremely extremely refreshing to hear that, because that wasn't, I know you've been in the Royals system for a couple years now, but going back further than that, that wasn't always something that we heard from either Royals minor leaguers or people in the Royals system. So it's great to hear that. You've played a variety of, we talked a little about offense. You've played a variety of defensive positions throughout your college and professional career at this point. You've played mostly second base this year, but also a little bit of left field as well. Do you have a preference of where you play defensively? And has the organization told you, hey, this is where we like you the most?
Yeah, so last year, I think they were just trying to figure out what all I could do. So they just were bouncing me around everywhere, And this year, in spring training was the year they're like, we're gonna have you in the infield a little bit more than the outfield this year, which in the past, like usually wasn't like that. Like at Vandy, I practiced every day in the infield, but when it was game time, I was playing left. So like I've always been an infielder. I always like to describe myself. I'm an infielder that can play outfield. So if you're like asking like where do I feel more comfortable? I mean, I'm most comfortable just playing. Like it doesn't matter where you put me. Like I'm comfortable playing anywhere. But I would say I could be Gold Glove caliber second baseman one day. I think, in my opinion.
Fantastic. I'll take a Gold Glover.
That will play. That will play. As they say. All right. Well, we've taken up a little bit of your time here, so let's get to this lightning round and talk a little bit about some stuff that has nothing
Javier
to
the
do with
person.
Javier the person. That's what we're interested in.
We already found out that you got your degree this past spring. Congratulations on that.
Fantastic. Now we're going to talk a little bit. These are all just like things. Answer them as quickly as you can. No rush, but also no need to linger here. Favorite music you listen to when you're sad?
When I'm sad, lately, honestly, country music. Morgan Wallen.
Get out of here. I was going to ask you a country music question because isn't Vandy in Nashville?
Yeah, I took country music in class.
Okay. You took a country music class. Okay. Well, if you're feeling down, Jason Isbell lives in Nashville there. He's a country guy. He'll be about as sad as you can be. So.
I love how our podcast encourages sadness.
Yes.
All right. Javier, what's your go-to Disney movie?
Go to Lion King or Lilo.
Okay. That's an original Lion King, I assume.
Original Lion King or Lilo and Stitch.
Okay. All right. I know I had a person I knew many years ago who absolutely loved that movie. What's your go-to pregame meal?
I mean, we get it from the field, but if I had to choose, Chick-fil-A.
Everybody says Chick-fil-A. I don't
love
get the
Chick-fil-A.
Obsession. It's just like Chick-fil-A is right here for us. It's literally a minute from the field. I could walk there if I wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, like sometimes our pregame meal isn't the best, So like my alternative is gonna be Chick-fil-A.
Okay. All right. So dream career other than baseball?
Architect.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Building. Nice. And final one, last movie you saw in a theater?
I saw The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. You know that new Planet of the Apes?
Yeah,
that one. That was the last one I seen in movies.
See, I don't keep up with. I didn't even know there was a new Planet of the Apes movie out.
I mean, there's definitely better ones than the one that just came out.
Mike hasn't seen a movie in a theater since 2008. So
and it's not. It's just I'm cheaper than crap. I hate spending money. That's the problem. But yeah, I got to get back in one of the movie theaters, man.
It's a nice experience. Thank you so much for joining us, Javier. We really, really appreciate it. I think our listeners are going to just have their minds blown by some of the insight that you've given us today. I really appreciate it. Anytime you want to come back, just let us know. You're a guest on the show anytime you want.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys for having me. I had a good time.
Yeah, good luck with the rest of the year.
Yeah, we'll be watching.
See you guys.
Bye.
Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream home, retirement home, or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
You know they say sleep with one eye open? I sleep with both eyes open when I know this guy's around and a gun under my pillow.
You should, and you should. Do not sleep with guns under your pillow. It's very dangerous. Eric does long-term rentals for the Snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or a parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will help you find the perfect spot fast. Want to spend your day shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows the legal definition of all you can eat. Find Eric online at ericoxer.com if you can figure out how to spell his name. ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text. It's way easier. 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he can pair wines with cheeses like a licensed sommelier.
I'm surprised you pronounced that correctly.
Hey, I'm cultured, man.
The Royals have a chance to get back on track at home this week with a 3-game series against the Marlins and then a crucial 4-game set against the Cleveland Guardians. Mike, tell us about the Marlins, who the Royals kind of need to do well against.
Well, they traded away their best player already. That tells you about where the Marlins are as a team right now. They are 27-50, which is good for last in the NL East. And this is the great thing. I put this out on Threads. We're turning our rotation over to start this week. So it is a great kind of regrouping time, especially when you get the Marlins to start the week. It's going to be Cole Reagans versus Roddery Munoz, a 24-year-old righty out of the Dominican Republic. He's got a 5.76 ERA, which is bad for those just new to baseball, and a 1.35 whip, which is also pretty bad. Okay, that's not terrible, but it's not that good. Cutter, 4-seam fastball in the mid-90s, a sinker, a slider, and a changeup. His expected ERA is over 7. And so he might even be getting lucky and have a 5.76 ERA. And so really got to get to Munoz in that first game. In the second game, it's going to be Seth Lugo versus Yanni Chirinos, a 30-year-old righty out of Venezuela. He's only started 1 game this year. It was 5 innings pitched. He gave up 2 earned runs in that 1 start. He's got a sinker, slider, a 4-seamer at 93, a splitter. He throws the sinker and the 4-seamer more than 50%, but the results against those pitches have been pretty good in the past. And so another chance to score some runs in that second game. In the third game, we'll have Brady Singer going, but they have not announced the starter for the Marlins yet. And so we'll just have to see in that. Hopefully we can get a good version of Brady Singer. And, man, got to get at least 2 or 3 from the Marlins, you think?
I'm calling for a sweep.
I'd like one.
Let's go on a 7-game winning streak starting this week. What do you say?
Oh, that would be fantastic.
That would mean winning 4 games against the Guardians, who come up after the Marlins here. It's all at home this week, though. The Guardians are 49-26, which is good enough for first in the AL Central. They are 7.5 games up on the Twins, who are now second in the AL Central. The Guardians, obviously, we don't have probables for that series, but the Guardians' offense is above average. They have a 108 weighted runs created plus. So far this year. They're getting a phenomenal year out of Stephen Kwan, who looks like he's flirting with 400. It's still early for him. He missed the start of the season, and so he hasn't had that many plate appearances. But he's doing really, really well in the time he's got. I think he's got like a 190 OPS plus or something like that, which is real good for a kind of on-base singles hitter like him. And then they're getting good offensive years from Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez as well. Nothing surprising about that. But they just have a well-rounded lineup pretty much top to bottom. So the pitching staff's going to have to be all over that one. Their pitching staff, the Guardians, they're having a little bit of a different kind of year. The Guardians have been known for excellent starting pitching for a long time. This year they have the best bullpen in baseball, but their starters are hit and miss. They're getting good years out of Tanner Bibby and Ben Lively, who's, I believe, a former Royal. Am I not mistaken on that? Ben Lively was with the Royals there for a second, maybe?
I can't remember.
But they're not getting good years from Carlos Carrasco, Tristan McKenzie, or Logan Allen this year. We know we touched up Tristan McKenzie, I think, in the 1 start he had against the Royals earlier this year. And so hopefully they can get to some starters. Maybe they'll get lucky and run into Carrasco, McKenzie, and Allen for this series. And then we won't have to worry about that vaunted bullpen. Daunting bullpen? I'm having trouble with words today.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You know who the Guardians kind of remind me of? Remember when the Phillies started being good? Remember, it's like, oh man, that first year when they kind of made that run in the playoffs, they remind me of that team. Remember how that team had like Bryce Harper, obviously, and you had who's the fat guy that strikes out all the time, but also hits a bunch of home runs?
Schwarber.
But other than that, they just had like a bunch of dudes that weren't terrible. And it was like the Marsh guy in the outfield had a solid year, and you just had a lot of guys at different positions that are like, yeah, he's a solid player. That's what I see in the Guardians. You have Jose Ramirez, who's like your Bryce Harper. He's fantastic. You have a guy having a career year in Stephen Kwan, probably. And then you just got some guys that are good players. That's how their offense continues to do it. Even when you look at it, you go, that's not super impressive outside Jose Ramirez, but that's who they kind of remind me of.
What have we said a million times on this podcast? Depth is more important than top end talent in baseball.
Yeah.
We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, I'm sure you have something interesting to talk about. Things happen to you all the time. Tell us what happened to you last week.
Things just happen to me all the time.
All the time.
All the time. The highlight of my day.
When you live life out loud.
That's right. The highlight of my day today was that my son got a haircut. Woo! Living well. But no, the thing I want to talk about is I'm going to encourage people to make music even if it sucks. Okay? So Mark and I, for years now, have made music together. I play guitar. Mark plays keyboard. Our older brother Bob will also play with music with us sometimes. He plays guitar as well and has some recording equipment. We'll record our terrible music. We write our own music and things like that as well. Mark being a pretty good writer of things, and me also being able to write. But it's fun to do, right? Well, then, starting a few weeks ago, I wanted to show my son, who's 2 years old now, that like dad plays guitar and like how that kind of works. And so we come down here into my basement and I have my guitar here. And so I let him just like strum the thing. And I got this big barrel thing that he beats on like a drum, and he's got a little tambourine that he plays with. And it sounds absolutely awful. Okay. And we make up like some songs just to sing, like 1 or 2 line songs about stuff he's interested in. He's really into the movie Cars right now and Lightning McQueen. So we wrote a song about Lightning McQueen. And, we're just playing that. And I'll catch him singing that song when we're not even playing music and stuff. And so I just encourage you, like, and my wife actually, she played the oboe many, many, many years ago, and just sold her oboe a couple of years ago to a lady in her 40s who just wanted to learn a musical instrument. Okay. She'd never played any musical instrument, just wanted to learn something, and just happened to pick out the oboe, I think, because it was in a song that she liked or something like that. Pick up music, learn to play something. You don't have to play it well. It's like golf. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it. Okay. And so that's my encouraging thing to you. Play music, make music, especially with your children. Let that absolute noise and be your music. Okay. And not only will your kids get a lot out of it, you will get a lot out of it and have a great time with them.
Kids absolutely get a ton out of it. I used to run in like an after-school writing club for kids of various ages, but I ran specifically the classroom for kindergartners and first graders. And music day or songwriting day was like a really big day, a really anticipated day for the kindergartners and first graders. I'd bring in my keyboard. We would sit there, and these were all kids who didn't necessarily want to, do these writing activities and stuff like that until you were like, hey, let's write a song. And they were like, absolutely, let's do that. And I was like, and so they would write songs about all the things that interested them, Batman or whatever, this or that, and then I would have them come up and I would play some chord progression for them and sing their lyrics, and they loved it. And they would sing too sometimes if they had the courage to sing with me. And they absolutely love that as an activity, a literacy activity that they enjoy, and that just gets them, interested and fun. And so I highly encourage that, but it's good for adults too. Like, it's just, I can't explain to you how much playing music has meant for me emotionally over the course of my life, making music, right? Like, when sad things happen to me, I can write songs about it and I can be sad about it. When I've had a rough day at work, I can just come home and pound on my keyboard and sing at the top of my lungs. And, it's a way of letting off some steam that I really, really like. And so, I highly encourage. That's a great message for people. I highly encourage you, make music, even if you're terrible at it. And trust me, Mike and I are terrible at it.
We are not
We write
good at
songs, but we are very bad at it. Anyway, you've heard us sing on this podcast multiple times. I'm going to talk about an event that I went to today because it was incredible. It was a really interesting thing. A while back, my partner Riggs, who's super into food and follows everything related to the food scene here in Kansas City, found this event that was taking place at the Kansas City Museum. And yes, there is a thing that is just called the Kansas City Museum, and is a museum kind of about Kansas City, sort of. And so it was an event where this chef was like cooking a lunch that was sort of walking you through the history of Kansas City food. And it was so cool. We went to it today. The chef's name, I want to give him credit, is Rick Mullins. He's actually works full time at Town Company, I think it's called, which is like this swanky restaurant inside Kansas City Hotel, maybe. So he normally does that, but he was doing this today. And he's been doing this, I think, all weekend this weekend. And he just walked us through, like, he had sort of a barbecue dish that was like, so it tells us the history of like Arthur Bryant's, and sort of like the way it started out as like a cart somebody was like pushing on the street selling possum and squirrel and all those different types of weird meats and stuff like that. And there's like an original recipe that's now been lost to time for Arthur Bryant's sauce and stuff like that. And so they're trying to like recreate these various dishes, or this taco place that was like founded in 1940s or something like that. We had some of that. We had mutton from with the sort of barbecue mutton. We had chop suey, which is like from this one of the first Chinese American restaurants in Kansas City. It was incredible to sort of hear him talk about all these various food things that have happened in Kansas City, and then get a chance to sort of eat those recipes that he's made, or that were sort of at the very least inspired by those dishes. And then they had like a mixologist there who was mixing non-alcoholic drinks for every one of these sorts of things. It was just a really cool experience to both learn that information and get to eat great food along with it. It was really, really cool. So if you ever get a chance to, if he ever does anything like this again, I highly encourage you to check that out. He's somebody who's very interested into the history of food in Kansas City. So it would not surprise me if he does more events related specifically to food from the history of Kansas City. I highly recommend checking it out. It was a very cool activity. So I'm so glad Riggs found that. It's dope. That's all we have for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll have more wins to talk about next week. We don't know, but hopefully that's the case. But we'll be back next week no matter what. So we want to say thank you for joining us here on Royals Weekly. We're presented by Bet Online. We will be back next week, whether winning or losing. We'll see you then. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.